What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Let's Talk F1 2015, and today we'll be looking at the engine rules for 2015 and seeing what will that mean for the manufacturers going forward. Now, last year we had pretty stable rules for the engines. At the beginning of the year, all engines were homologated and all development was frozen. This meant only on grounds of safety and reliability were the engines meant to be changed. But this year, for 2015, there have been a few loopholes in the regulation which mean that in-season development of the engines is possible. The loophole found in the regulations by teams means lap times will drop and we could see a little gap closing towards the Mercedes, but I wouldn't expect a huge jump to Mercedes in my opinion. Now, teams, apart from Honda, are allowed quite open in-season modifications of the engines. Honda are allowed to modify the engine, but that's been scaled down a little bit, and I will talk about that later in the video. The loophole effectively is, in the rulebooks, there's no set date for the 2015 engine homologation. Homologation is basically the freezing of parts, whereby they can't alter any of the parts anymore, and in 2014, all of the engine was homologated apart from, obviously, as I said, reliability modifications. But for 2015, the homologation date has not been set. There is no written date in the book, in the regulations, to say you must homologate the engine by this date, and it doesn't have to be for the first race either. And now, because of this loophole, manufacturers are able to alter their engines to some extent. So essentially, the power unit was divided up into different areas, and each area was given a weighting. Now, these weightings are basically transferred over to tokens, as the FIA have called them, and there are 66 tokens in total. 5 of these tokens have already been frozen all the way to 2020, which means they cannot be altered at all till that set date. This leaves 61 tokens covering all the rest of the power unit parts that are able to be modified by the FIA's view. Now, this year in 2015, the teams have been allowed to change 32 tokens of the engine. They can choose what to spend these 32 tokens on out of the 61 available, but it's their doing, and once a token has been used, they have to stop any development on that particular area token. Because of this and the loophole in the rules, it means the teams can develop throughout the season using these tokens up until they've used all 32, but once all 32 are used, you have to draw a line in the sand with the development. The FIA regulation states, quote, "Once homologated, no changes may be made to the design or construction of the homologated parts for the duration of the homologation period laid out in Article 28.5 of the F1 Sporting Regulations." However, it's unlikely teams will use all of 2015 to upgrade 32 tokens, as the 2014 engines will be a lot slower than the 2015 ones, and so they'll want to have a fully homologated 2015 engine on the car ASAP. So there have been many theories on how teams can go about using their 32 tokens and how they'll spread them out around the 4 engines. It seems like the FIA and Charlie Whiting, from what they've been quoted on by news reporters, seem to think that the teams will definitely bring a 2015 spec engine to the first race, and therefore would have used some of the tokens up. And the fact that the FIA think that all the teams will bring a 2015 spec engine to the first race is also the base and foundation of the ruling on Honda's situation, being a new manufacturer to F1. So before we get into the Honda ruling, we're going to look at what all the other manufacturers can do this season. So as I said, one idea is what the FIA and Charlie Whiting definitely think the F1 teams will be doing, which is bringing a 2015 spec engine to the first race. Now, they could either use all 32 tokens developed on and bring that full engine and homologate it at the first race, or they could use a sum of tokens, homologate that first engine. That would be a 2015 engine. Then the next engine they use, they could bring another raft of upgrades with some more tokens. And if they're not all used up yet, then they can use the third engine and homologate all 32 tokens by that third engine. But another more cunning idea by some analysts has been that teams could bring a 2014 engine to the first race and therefore not actually homologate any of their 32 tokens straight away. This would allow for maximum development on any of the tokens they use because they have more time simply to do R&D on them. So the idea would be using a 2014 engine for the first engine allocated, and that would be for the first few races. Then introducing their first 2015 spec engine for the second allocated engine. That would be maybe around Spain, some analysts predict. This second engine could have all 32 tokens used up, and some analysts like James Allen have actually picked F1 teams to do so. He thinks that 2014 engines will be used for the first one, and then for the second one, all 32 tokens will be burnt up. Others think that teams could spread the upgrades along the road and so use some amount of tokens for the second allocated engine for their first 2015 spec, and then use it again for the third engine, and then finally complete all the tokens and burn them all up for the fourth engine. But this has its issues. Let's say the third engine blows up or has some sort of issue. That's going to be a massive problem for teams, because they have to make these engines go a lot longer. 4 engines over 20 races, that's 5 races each. And if an engine goes, they have to put the new engine in. And unlike last year where they want a fresh engine for the last race at Abu Dhabi, which was double points last year, this year every race is important as any other, so they can't afford to maybe go back to an old engine and use their second allocated one. This means they would be forced to use that fourth allocated engine, and therefore either just rush the upgrades on or not even have the upgrades on there, and then they're completely lost, because if they want to introduce these upgrades they're going to have to take a penalty, or they simply don't introduce the upgrades and may have a slower engine compared to other competitors. The balancing act teams have to do is they have to consider how much time they can gain with these upgrades and how much R&D they can do in a certain period of time to really make these upgrades make an impact. Having only 32 tokens, it's a very limited offering and they have to make the most of it. It's a balancing act of, do you use all 32 tokens straight away on the first engine, like the FIA and Charlie Whiting think they'll do, or on the second engine to give yourself some time to really make the upgrades count? Or do you even spend more time to put more upgrades in later in the season, hoping that there will be big enough steps to warrant the risk of having one less engine to play with, essentially, if one goes wrong? Now let's discuss Honda's ruling. Honda being a new manufacturer to F1, the FIA wanted to treat Honda like they were coming in 2014 and wanted them to stick by the rules all the other manufacturers had to use last year. But Honda believed this was a disadvantage, and to be honest, I personally also think this would be a disadvantage, because the advantages gained by developing the engine in season could be quite profound. So this is the ruling on Honda, and this is completely based on FIA and Charlie Whiting thinking that all the manufacturers are definitely going to bring a 2015 spec engine to the first race, and to be honest, with this ruling, they may have just forced the manufacturer's hand to do so. Based on all of them bringing 2015 engines to the first race, obviously the tokens they've used up to already upgrade the car will be homologated. Now, out of these homologations, the ones left over will all be average. So let's say Mercedes have 14 tokens left over. Let's say Ferrari have 10, and Renault have 6. So Honda can use 10 tokens, the average of the unused ones, for the rest of the season. So while Mercedes can play with 14 for the rest of the season, Ferrari 10 and Renault 6, Honda can only play with 10 there. Now this is based on, again as I said, the current manufacturers bringing the 2015 spec engine to the first race. Now a lot of analysts tip manufacturers to bring the 2014 engine to the first race, and as I said, spend more time developing the cars and potentially use all 32 tokens up for the second engine and implementing it around the Spanish Grand Prix to get maximum speed out of the engine. But this new ruling has almost forced the manufacturer's hands. It's like Charlie Whiting and FIA assumed that all the manufacturers would bring their 2015 spec engine to the first race, and now with this ruling, this may have forced their hand to just do that. Because if you think about it strategically, all 3 of these already established manufacturers could team up together in a certain way and bring their 2015 engine to the first race, thus kind of stopping Honda coming in, developing even more on top of the extra year they've had out of the sport, and potentially ruining a party. So that's been the 2015 engine rules. As you can see, there's a lot more strategy involved this year with the engines and how you play out your cards with these 32 upgraded tokens. Also, with the added one less engine to play with for the whole season, this has also put another spanner in the works. I hope this video cleared up some things for you guys with the engine rules, and I hope it was clear enough for you to understand. If you don't understand anything about the engine rules, then do comment below in the comments and we'll try and reply to them. If you did enjoy this video, then I'd appreciate a like. Comment below what you thought. As I said, subscribe if you're new around here for more Let's Talk F1 2015. This will be a year-long series of analysis with aerodynamic analysis at each race weekend. But yeah, I've been aarava, hope you enjoyed the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time.